Hi guys. We'll wait a few minutes before we start. Uh, Let me just check if the YouTube streaming is also working. All right, people are joining in. Uh, we'll start in just a couple of minutes once people join in. Please let me know if you have any audio issues, be it the YouTube guys or the people here. All right, let's start. An introduction about myself. My name is Ashwin. I've attempted CAT twice now. Once back in 2018 when my final year of engineering, and last year, CAT 2019. I secured a 100 percentile last year overall. Uh, my 2018, I had a 99.36 percentile. I have an admit from IIM Ahmedabad. I've deferred the admit for a year, so I'll be joining the 21-23 batch. Okay, so let's move in, right? Uh, okay, the thing is, at this point of your preparation, you have 2 weeks left for CAT. What exactly do we do is a big question a lot of aspirants ask. This is a question I had last year and the year before that as well. So this is one of those things which worked for me. Uh, it I did a comprehensive analysis. I analyzed uh, around 20-25 of the last, I mean, around 20-25 mocks which I had taken over the course of the year. I think I had taken overall 50. I mainly analyzed the last 20-25 mocks, and I was trying to find patterns, etc. And this helped me improve my percentile. It also helped me finalize on the strategy I want to take forward in CAT, etc. All right, so what are the expectations I have of the people viewing? Guys, one, I expect you guys to have done the basics. I'm not going to be teaching you verbal, DILR, or quant here. It's more about how what you've already learned, how the mock exams you've taken can be used effectively. How do you come up with your final strategy? How do you figure out your strengths and weaknesses if you already haven't figured it out, and things like that? So obviously, I expect you guys to have done your basics. I hope you guys have taken a few mocks, at least maybe 5-10 mocks, if not more. Okay, so why do we conduct such a? Why do we? What are the kind of issues we face at this point, right? One, it could be that you have stagnant scores. You might have reached an X percentile. Maybe let's say you've reached a 90 percentile or 95 percentile, and you're plateauing there. For multiple mocks, you end up with a similar percentile, or you end up with a similar score. You're not able to make that push to the next level. It could be because your mock scores are inconsistent. It's possible that let's say you have freak shows where you suddenly score a 200 out of 300, or maybe a freak show where you score just 70 out of 200, 300. Either case could be because one, your accuracy is not in handle. The mock score not improving is probably because you need tweaks in your strategy. Mock score inconsistency is either because you've lost track of accuracy altogether. So here, see, if I have to say, right, mock score inconsistency and not improving, both of which, to an extent, would be handled here. But majorly, what I'm trying to, speak about, the kind of things I'm trying to, get you people to avoid is silly mistakes. Now, look, making silly mistakes is quite natural. Everybody makes it, right? You can take a look at how people like, let's say, Rajesh Balasubramaniam sir, for example. He had taken a live mock a few days ago, and you saw that somebody like him was attempted CAT 10 times, he stopped CAT 4 times. And somebody like him also makes a silly mistake. Calculation errors are possible. I mean, I've done things like, 8 plus 17 is equal to 30, or something of that sort, where it's a very, very silly mistake which will ruin the entire, problem uh, or set for DILR. Uh, okay, we have a question here from Indira Banda. Solving past year CAT papers will help. Definitely. So, see, the best questions you can find for CAT, the best practice you can have is your previous year CAT papers. Obviously, they're not going to repeat the question, but it's because you can have a practice there. You'll see that CAT is so well designed that they have questions from across the board and it's very well distributed. You're not going to have 20 questions from one single place like geometry and math. It's going to be very well distributed. So doing past year papers is one of the best final last minute, tests you can do. It's not like how it was in board exam where we used to, just solve the past few years papers, go and you ace the exam. It's not like that. You do your preparation, done your analysis, you have your strategy, but a good place to work it out. The final mocks that you take should be your final previous year CAT papers. These are very, very good solutions. I mean, they are very, very good problems. So if you can solve those, you can solve CAT. And in general, what I have seen is that your CAT papers are generally easier than your mock papers. The mock tests that these different, IMS, time, etc. conduct are typically tougher than your actual CAT paper or the previous year CAT paper. So uh, right now, whatever mocks you take, if you haven't attempted the previous year CAT papers, please go ahead and attempt. I was going to get to that towards the end. So, is there anything else? Please, guys, do ask. And all right, so back to where I was. So the entire point of this is so that you guys conduct a good analysis of all the mocks you've taken, because, like I said, the best place to solve one is your previous year CAT papers. Another are these mock tests that these coaching centers give. They typically tend to have the best questions in the mock tests, right? So going through your old mocks, one is going to give you a good revision. Two, it's going to tell you all the major areas of concern you have if you've not already figured it out. Three, quite often, especially in verbal, you guys might have noticed that you get down to two options and you don't know which one to pick, and you pick the wrong answer, and you feel, yeah, these people have done something, which is why I'm getting a wrong answer. My answer should be right, and we just leave it. We let it go. It happens quite often. It happened to me a lot, and that meant my accuracy was very fluctuating. Right? I didn't know why I was getting those questions wrong in RC. So this comprehensive analysis really helped me. You don't have to do it for, I'm saying, all 30 mocks or 20 mocks you've taken. Even though 5 mocks, if you do that right now, it will help you, one, figure out your strategy, and two, figure out why you're making such mistake. And that's very, very crucial. All right. So, uh, one, you want to find out, see, silly mistakes, like I said, if you make a small calculation error, that's fine. That's a silly mistake. It is not if you make calculation errors every time in geometry, or you make that in one specific place, let's say trigonometry, or let's say time and distance, you're making the same mistake over and over again across mocks. That means there's something wrong. Either you're losing focus during that one subject, in which case it's a different way, to tackle it. Or let's say, at least one of the biggest mistakes I used to have were that I never followed. Yeah, I'll go into strategy, Simran. Just give me a minute. I will go into that later. In fact, I'm conducting a class tomorrow at 4, where it's all about just the different strategies you can use for verbal, DILR, and quant. And how do basically see, there are 4, 5, 6 different types of strategies for each section. But what works for you depends on your strengths and weaknesses. For that, you need to analyze your mocks, which is why I started with this class. But yes, I'll definitely go into the strategy part. So see here, you have to work out your strengths, weaknesses. What do I mean by strengths and weaknesses? So let's say you have a question that area, if that area is your strength, you will get the logic soon. You'll be able to solve the question soon, and you'll be able to solve it for sure. Let's say it's a weakness. In my case, let's say for quant, my weakness was geometry. In verbal ability, my weaknesses were basically your non-theta questions in verbal ability. Things like para summary, para completion. How did I figure out that this was my weakness? It was because of this sort of an analysis. I went through all the mocks I'd taken. I figured out that the number of answers I get correct, or the number of answers I get in fact, were very low. So, doing that, figuring out your strengths and weaknesses will then eventually help you prepare your final strategy as well. All right. Now, another thing of conducting such comprehensive analysis is that once you find a pattern in your silly mistakes, you can go back and then you can improve your accuracy. Figure out why you're making the silly mistake will eventually improve your accuracy, and that will also help you finalize your attempt strategy. All right, Ashutosh has a question. Algebra constitutes one of the largest part of CAT, but function logs are a big problem for me. How do I deal with it right now? All right, this is true, mate. Algebra is very, very important. Functions and logs in general, you don't have to worry too much. Questions are very low in number. Even if you leave logs altogether, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Functions, at this point, I'd say functions, going back to see, if you find that functions and logs are your only problem in quant, then I'd say spare a few hours, go back and read up on functions, go through whatever modules or whatever books you initially learned from, and spend a day on it, work on it. But if this is just part of the problem, let's say you have other areas of concern, then one way I would say is see what kind of mistakes you've made in logs and functions. Is it because you just look at the question and you can't answer, or if it's because uh, you take a lot of time to solve it, or it's because you just don't understand functions or logs at all. If at this situation, 2 weeks in, 2 weeks before CAT, if you have no idea, you can't make head or tails of how functions or log works, I suggest leaving them altogether. They will not, it's not part of it's not that big a problem, right? Again, it all depends on what situation you're in. Going back to the books is one thing, especially if that's your only weakness, mate. All right. Uh, okay. Sorry, guys. I got derailed a bit here, but yeah, please do ask questions. I will answer all of them to the best of my ability, at least. Hey Keshav, sir, I'm able to solve previous year CAT papers, but not getting good score in CL mocks. What to do? Uh, Look, bro. See, the thing about CL mocks or any such coaching center mocks, right? I've not taken CL mocks personally, so I don't know. But these mocks tend to be much tougher than your CAT papers. If you're able to solve previous year CAT papers, take heart from that. You're good. See, if you can solve a 2018 quant paper, a 2019 verbal paper, a 2016 DILR paper, it doesn't get tougher than that in CAT. I mean, I'm talking about the last 10-year papers. These three are probably the toughest individually. So don't worry too much about CL mocks, but do analyze. That's the entire point of this session, really. Take time out and analyze, say, 5 of your CL mocks, and then you see where are you not scoring. Is it because of a strategy problem? A lot of times that happens, right? Where you get stuck in, say, a DLR set, or you're not able to, even look at a couple of RC passages, or maybe you make a lot of mistakes in VARC, especially RCs. A lot of us have accuracy issues in RCs. So that's when you go back to this. You analyze 5 or 10 mocks together, and you see what kind of pattern comes out. I'll tell you, in my personal case, VARC, I used to solve 30 plus questions, right? And out of 30 plus questions, 30 plus questions, my accuracy at one time, just before, let's say, maybe a 1 month before CAT, I was getting maybe 16 to 18 correct. Okay, yeah. Like you said, 22 out of 12 out of 22, you get. Even I was getting similarly, I was making 10 plus mistakes. One thing I realized was that when you go back and look at 5 papers together and see what are the kind of mistakes you're making. In my case, it turned out the non-theta questions, right? Those kind of, let's say, para summary, what do you call it, para completion. These questions, my hit rate was very low. Either I leave them at altogether in the CAT, or I was getting very low. Like if I attempt, let's say 10 para summaries, I was getting one or two right, which meant it makes no sense for me to even attempt them in CAT. It's just two questions, right? I'd rather leave them. I'd work on a RC in that situation. So uh, that is the kind of analysis you have to do. See what works for you, what's not working for you. See, if you said you're attempting 22 questions, right? That's a decent number of questions. Now tell me, how exactly do you attempt? Do you attempt, let's say, 4 RCs, or do you get it from 2 RCs and the rest maybe 6 or 7? Six, sorry, do you attempt 10 VA and maybe 8 questions from RCs, or how does it work? It depends on that, right? If you ramp up the thing that's working for you, tone down on the thing that's not working for you, and this, your mock analysis is the best. All right, 3 RCs out of 4 and 4 to 5 para jumbles and summary. All right, so that means most of your scores is from RC, and that's where you're losing marks, right? RC. All right, so look at these. I was going to this eventually. Look at these 4 buckets of mistakes. See if any mistake you made falls in these 4 buckets. Always we tend to come down to 2 options and we mark the wrong option, right? At least that was my situation, a lot of it. So I went back and I checked. And once you think with a clear mind, you'll realize that always those 2 options you come down to, the wrong option will fall in one of these 4 categories. Either it will be out of scope. I mean, let's say we're talking about a global warming kind of a talk, right? And it comes to, and then the option may be talking about climate change in general. Global warming is but a small part of climate change, but I mean a large part, but in the sense that is out of scope, right? So in that situation, those kind of options will be wrong. Look for that. Next, subtle mismatches. So let's say I'm talking about penguins in North America. So, sorry, North America, or Alaska and all of that. And the option might have it in Antarctica. They're talking about same type of penguins and everything, right? But it's a mismatch. We tend not to see it. So we might have penguins in the Arctic, and let me take seals in Antarctica, and then there's a mismatch. Be very careful of that, because when we read, we're like, okay, this thing. I mean, we don't look at that small difference, and we're confused, stuck. Look for that. Very important. Use of extreme language. Any question which has an only, all, always, never. People tell you this all the time, but think about it, right? If there is one case which disproves the statement, that's wrong. So look for that one case, right? It's one thing you guys have to realize. At least in my case, what I realized was RCs you have to eliminate. Just going into looking and choosing the option, it might work, it might not work. In my case, I preferred choosing the option, but eventually I had to change mine to a combination. I have to eliminate, choose 2 close answers and then eliminate the wrong answer. It had to come down to that. So what works for you, but look through it. Do a good analysis. It helps a lot if you can analyze 5 mocks together, verbal especially. Spend time. It helps a lot. All right, Ashutosh here. I'm kind of terrified of functions. You studied math 5 years ago. That it's true, bro. Don't worry too much. Functions as such will maybe have 1 or 2 questions. You don't worry so much. Figure out your strengths. Figure out the kind of questions that work for you. Avoid. So, for example, my issue was I was similarly scared of geometry. I hated geometry. The second I see a geometry question, I get scared. All right. Even in CAT, I left my geometry altogether. I ended up with a 99.84 in quant. I'm very, very happy with that. And trust me, I was overjoyed. The reason was I attempted every question other than that, right? And the strategy I followed revolved around my weakness. I see a geometry question, I leave it for the end, right? I don't mind not seeing a geometry question, but I have a problem not seeing one of the questions which I'm good at. Same way for you, leave your functions questions to the end, right? If you see that there are a lot of functions questions which will technically not happen, so don't worry too much. But let's say it happens, then you try to figure out the easiest in those questions, right? Don't I know I can sit here and say don't worry too much, go in with an open mind and all of that, but that's not how it is, right? I understand that you will still be you will still be terrified of it, but try to tell yourself it doesn't matter, right? There are 32 questions, so this year will be much lesser number of questions, but if you can solve 50%, 60% you're sitting at the 99 range. You solve 30-40%, you're set. You're clearing your cutoffs if you can solve like 25%. So it's not very tough, guys. Don't worry too much. All right. Simran, I end up choosing questions which waste a lot of them. They get wrong in quants. What to do? Simrandeep, see, this is a very, very, it's something that happens to all of us and happens very regularly, which is the reason I was talking about this entire process where we spend time analyzing our mocks, figure out your strengths, weaknesses. So if it's a weak area, leave it for the end or leave it altogether. It is okay to leave questions, guys. Leave your ego at the door when you go to write CAT. You might be really good at something, you might be really bad at something. It all depends on the question. Play the question by its merits. Obviously, see, think of it this way, right? Let's say we're playing cricket. I'm scared of fast bowling. It might be that this fellow doesn't swing the ball or anything. He just comes fast. And maybe once I play a little bit, I'm strong, I'm middling the ball, I can hit shots. But initially, I have to be a little scared. Beware of such questions. Leave it to the end. Attempt things which are very strong at. Get your score up. See, there's an adrenaline rush, right? All of us take mocks and cats. We know that there's an adrenaline rush where you solve 10 questions. And you're like, yes, I'm a god here. I'm going to solve all these questions here. That adrenaline rush really helps, right? So you got to set this thing. You got to solve those questions. It gives you a lot of satisfaction to solve those questions upfront. Kunal, so get the ones which are correct, which you know well. Find out which are easy questions. For that, analysis is very important. What is easy for me might not be what's easy for you, and vice versa. So to figure that out, analyze. Go through and see what kind of mistakes you're making, what kind of questions are you leaving, what kind of questions are you attempting. Figure a pattern. There is always a pattern, and you can figure it out. It's not very tough. I hope I answered your question. Kunal Bharadwaj, I'm facing some problem in PNC. Though I've studied concepts, should I spend time on revising and practice or focus on other topics? Bro, at this point, I would suggest focusing on other topics. I'm not saying completely forget PNC. PNC, again, is a very small topic. It's most of the time PNC topics can be solved using algebra and all of that. So it's not always complete PNC questions. See, CAT in general will not ask you formula-based questions. They always ask you logic-based questions, right? And you can always figure out the solution without, having to, for example, take a 2017 DILR set. There is this question about where there are 5, basically scanning of fingerprints, bioprint question, which is technically a logic-based PNC question. But there, your knowledge of PNC is not really required. What you need to understand is the logic behind it. Similarly, there are quant questions of the similar kind. If you understand the logic, knowing PNC is not that very important. So don't worry too much. Focus on your other topics and try and figure out the logics. Right? That's going to drive your percentile up. All right. So when we come to DILR, I know I've been skimming through. That's because of the questions that's coming up. But I'll try and stick to the topic. Do come up with your questions. I'll go into it and then I'll come back here. DILR, guys, DILR is the monstrosity, right? This is the one, one subject where it is very, very hard to score high. Regardless of how tough the paper is, your quant and verbal scores are going to be high. At least a lot of people are going to score very high. If you look at the last 2 years' papers, 2019 verbal was tough, and yet a large number of people have got above 80, 90. Large, I mean, it's quite large for that. Correct, you're right. It's a very depressing section sometimes, DILR. And quant, again, you have these, especially these really super smart guys, engineers, unbelievably super smart. They score 102 in a tough paper, right? 2018 paper was ridiculously tough. Quant, and then there are people hitting 30, 32, 33 questions. I have a couple of friends who are right now in IIMs and all that, who had hit 30 plus questions, and then they came and told me after the paper, dude, I found the paper, ridiculously tough. I left out 2 questions. So you're going to find that kind of people here. DILR, on the other hand, it's very tough to find people who are scoring very high. Last DILR 2019 was comparatively on the easier side in slot 1 and very tough in slot 2. So if you guys have taken attempted last year's paper or taken it up as a mock, you'll realize that DILR is something you can always pick easy. Like your selection of sets is important. It is not about the difficulty. For example, always, regardless of how easy the paper is, there'll be one or two DLR sets which are going to kill you. It's going to be ridiculously tough. You can spend all the time you want, you won't get the logic. Those kind of questions will be there in DILR. So how you go about this is very, very important, which is why your analysis is super important. You should know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and figure out a strategy. Again, I will have a class for strategy tomorrow at 4 to 5, where I'll be talking about 2 or 3 different DLR strategies and what worked for you, what didn't work for you, etc. In my case, DLR was one of my strengths. Even then, my strategy was very important. It happened that I'd solve only 3 sets sometimes because I got stuck in one single set. And DLR was my strength, alright? And there were times when I did really well and I just had to leave out that 1.5 sets. Like, for example, in CAT 19, I attempted 29 questions out of 32. But those 3 questions which I did, and 2 were guessed. So you can say around 27, 28 questions I attempted. And that's basically that one set which was remaining, I couldn't solve even if, after spending 15 minutes on it. So if I had initially taken that set, I would have ruined my paper. Right? The fact that I kept it to the end was, it shows my strategy worked for me. Right? So figuring out your strategy, figuring out your strengths and weaknesses is very, very important here. And accuracy. Guys, verbal mein you can make mistakes. You cannot make mistakes in DILR or quant. It just doesn't make sense, right? You can make silly mistakes, I agree with it. But other than that, you're solving a question. How can you get it wrong? That means you might have either your concepts are not 100% strong. You're not crystal clear with it. Again, or you're making small guesses, you're cutting corners. Don't do that. It is okay to spend 12 minutes on a set in DILR and not get the answer. You leave it, you go to the next one, it's okay. It doesn't mean you have to attempt it, right? Kunal, what if we select the first set from a strength and it turned out to be tough? All right. When I said strengths, I said you should work your strategy according to your strengths. I didn't mean you have to start with a tough question. All right. I generally spend 2 or 3 minutes reading the question and taking a call, whether it was a tough or an easy set. Right. My strategy was this. I attempted the easiest, questions from my strengths, then went to the medium-ish questions from my strengths. Once I'm done with those two, there'll be 2 or 3 sets. I might have left a couple of sets. I don't mind, right? Then I go to my weaknesses, the areas where I struggle. There, I try and see if I can solve anything in those 3 sets. 2-3 sets. Again, this year the strategy would be slightly different, guys. You guys have to understand that. I'm talking about 8 set DILR. This year you might have 6, you might have 5. So your strategy has to work around it. Basically, think of it this way. DILR, either it's a yes, no, or later. Alright? So you look at the first question. If it's in your strength, if it's easy, attempt. If it's not your strength, go for later. Don't even check if it's easy or not. If it is in your strength, but it's difficult, like you figured out in, let's say, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, you leave it. There is no shame in leaving questions, guys. Leaving questions is how you should work with the DILR set, right? Another thing, this is something which really worked for a friend of mine, and he really suggested this. So DILR, make sure you take note of whatever mistakes you've made. All right. Keep it as a book. Maybe it might, if you, let's say, analyze 10 marks all together, you might end up with 10 pages of mistakes, or maybe even more. Make note of those mistakes. Solve those. So whenever you analyze a mock, you start with the questions you leave out, then you the questions you've got wrong, and see why you've got wrong. So once you've done the questions you leave out, that's basically because one, either your strategy was wrong, so you've left out easy questions, or your strategy was right and you've left out tough questions. Either ways, you've got to solve those questions to know whether they're easy or difficult, right? Take your time, do that. Once you've done that, you go to mistakes. Mistakes are very crucial because, like I said, small calculation errors are okay. But if you're going to make like 10, 12 mistakes, it's not acceptable. 2, 3 mistakes to an extent is okay. Like if you're making more than that, it might not be silly, which is why maintaining a mistakes books will show you, you know what, I've written down this mistake and I've repeated that 2 marks later. I've again repeated that some other time later, which is a problem, which is what you'll have to work on. You have to be conscious about the fact that Yeah, see, I've made such a mistake. Let me recheck this while doing. It's okay to spend that 20 seconds, 30 seconds rechecking. See, if you get one set, and the problem with DLR, right? Let's say you've made a mistake while doing your arrangement or whatever, solving the puzzle. If you've solved it wrong, you get zero correct. You make four mistakes, and four mistakes is a -4. Let's say you get 4 correct, you would have had a 12. That's a 16 mark difference. 16 marks is a cutoff for DILR. Alright, so you cannot afford such mistakes. And it happened with me. I'm laughing now, but in 2018, DILR, I got destroyed in that paper. I made 2 sets went for a toss like this. Alright, so trust me, this helped me so much because in CAT 19, I made a total of 2 mistakes, and both were guesses, so I don't care. The 27 I attempted properly. So you guys attempt 5 questions, 10 questions, 15 questions. That's okay. But make sure your accuracy is 100%. Do not make any mistakes. Calculation error is forgivable only if it's small calculation errors. Again, if these are big questions, big numbers, you have a calculator on screen, please use those. Use the calculator. I've seen multiple times that people shy away from using the calculator. It is okay. Don't worry about the 10, 20, 30 seconds you're losing. Worry about the 15 minutes that you spent on the set. 12 minutes, 10 minutes you spent on the set. And if you get it wrong, that's going to really hurt, right? So worry about that. So taking note of your mistakes, going through that in the end, it's very, very helpful. And same thing you will have to make for quant as well. See, when you talk about quant, see, you have to understand the logic behind each question. It's not CAT in general will not ask you pure formula based questions. It never happens that way, right? It's always you have to understand the logic behind it and then solve. I agree. You need a lot of formulae. People either already would have made formulae books. If you have not, every mistake that you've made, note down the formulae somewhere, right? It's not just the question here, the formulae, because last minute you can just read through it and go. Especially formulae that you've forgotten and things like that, and you feel it's important. Please do make a list of that. Even now, let's say you analyze 5 marks. 5 marks is 130, 140, 150 questions. Make sure whatever formula that you feel you didn't know, make a note of it. 150 questions, even if there are 20 formulae, that's big. Very, very big, right? So make note of that and revise that before going for your CAT. And so make sure you reread this book whenever you meet. Now, guys, we have an inherent bias kind of a situation. Have you guys noticed that? I've seen an inherent bias. It's happened both in quant. See, like you guys have told me, 3 people here have already told me. One person finds function logs difficult. You're terrified of it. There's a person who told me that PNC questions are very, very difficult. So what you guys have to realize is that that's an inherent bias. For me, my personal situation, geometry is scary. I see a geometry question, I'd prefer to leave it for now, right? So what do you go with it? Either you work it out, do you have the time for it? Again, this depends on your situation, right? If you guys are solid with 2 sections, quant also you're pretty good at, except let's say 1 or 2 chapters, go ahead and work it out, right? Go back to your books, go back to your notes. I would suggest take sectional mocks. Again, you probably find time, IMS, CL, etc. would probably give you sectionals according to subject. Take it, work it out, right? Solve every question. And sectionals, again, analysis is very important. Solve every question, right? Do that, and then maybe your bias works out. So tomorrow you see a PNC question, you're no longer scared. I see a geometry question, I no longer will be scared. Or you follow the bias. So if there is an inherent bias, you figure that you have an inherent bias, use the bias in your strategy. What do I mean by that? So my quant strategy was that I left geometry to the end. So it was my easy, medium, difficult also I broken down to ones which I can solve, cannot solve. So what I call difficult was things which take a lot of time. So that, and then the ones which don't take much time. So my thing was the easy, the medium, then geometry. I would read through all the questions and find the easy questions, solve them. Geometries, right, or your weakness. And then I go into one of these 2 difficult ones, right? The one which takes time, do that, and leave the ones which can't be solved anyway. So see, getting to this decision, right? Or getting to whatever strategy you guys reach eventually, that will depend on your bias or whatever subject. See, now we already know to an extent the subjects are very, very weak at. There are a lot of times where you realize that the kind of silly mistakes you make, or rather the mistakes you make, all come from one particular section. I had a friend who was very, very good at percentages and all of that. And he told me he made every single mock, he would make mistakes in percentages. He's very good at it, but he still makes mistakes. It was an inherent bias. He thought he was very good at it, but he wasn't. And that came from this sort of an analysis. Do a very good and comprehensive analysis. Very, very important, guys. Right now, it doesn't make sense to do 14 mocks before CAT. It makes sense to do 2 mocks and analyze your last 14 mocks as well. That is what's important. If you've not taken 14 mocks, if you've not taken a large number of mocks, that's fine. Take 2 mocks, analyze them very well, right? Get your strategy set. It is very, very important. Again, I'm repeating, I have a class tomorrow at 4, same place. So I will be talking about 2 or 3 strategies in verbal, DILR, and quant, and how your strengths and weaknesses should motivate you to go forward. Again, guys, disclaimer: this is what worked for me for the last 2 years. It might not work for you guys. So take whatever I'm telling here with a pinch of salt. You got to tune it to what works for you. For example, I had a friend who said that for RCs, right, what worked for him was that when he was reading something, he tried not to get that voice in your head. I'm not sure if you guys would have noticed that when you read something, you kind of read it out loud in your head, right? And he tried not to do that. So it's like silence in his head. I don't know how he did it, but it worked for him. I tried that sometime. I just couldn't read. I'm like, whatever I read goes in my head. It just didn't work for me. So there are multiple things that work or don't work for you. Listen to everything, see if it works. If it works, very good. If it doesn't work, don't waste your time. Yeah. Now you have those few days to experiment. Last few days to experiment. Take it out. When you go to CAT is nothing but an extension of your mocks which you've taken. Go enjoy. Yeah. Sometimes mine starts creating your own conclusion. Exactly. So you know you're right, Keshav. So you got to work that out, right? That comes from whatever mocks you've taken. Analyze. It's essential to analyze. See, mocks. The actual good thing about mocks is that it gives you stamina. Sit for 2 hours, 3 hours. Now it's only 2 hours. So most of us have been used to sitting for 3 hours. 2 hours is not a problem at all, right? Go enjoy yourself. See, it's like cricket, right? You spend hours practicing how to play a straight drive. You go there and play a straight drive. You've done your practice. You guys have all finished you've done what's basic, the basics, etc. Go there, enjoy yourselves. Before that, work out your strategy. It is very important. So figuring out strengths, weaknesses, and then eventually figuring out your strategy. That's very important. Again, one thing which happens with a lot of us, I don't know if it happens with you guys, happened to me a lot of time, is that my strategy wasn't like I went in thinking, you know what, I'll solve 10 RCs, I'll go to VA, come back to RC, all of that. I go in, the second I see the first question, I'm like, I just forget my entire strategy. I start solving from the first question, first, second, third, fourth. That is because of that, moment getting to you. It could be nervousness at play. It could be, the big moment kind of a thing. Work on that. Everything now you can work on is in your head, right? Get yourself into the right mind space and you guys are sorted. As last set of tips I'd like to give you guys, please finalize your CAT strategy. This is super important. Finalize it out. Make it a guide stone. Eventually, you can make changes in CAT. It's fine. Let's say your initial plan was for a 888 method in quant, right? Where you solve 8 minutes, you solve X number of questions. Now next set of questions in 8 minutes, next set in 8 minutes, and then you go for your round 2 or whatever strategy you use. Finalize it and go somewhere according to it. You can do a plus or minus. That's fine, but making this strategy is very, very important. Otherwise, it's like let's say you want to go from in the night, you want to go from one place to another. And you just know the 2 places. You don't have GPS or anything. How do you walk? You just keep walking around. You're walking around the same streets. You have no markers, etc. The strategy is giving you markers. You put at different places. saying here you go right, there you go left. Here and there you might make your own trajectories, but eventually you have an overall guideline. That is important. Work on your weak areas, guys. At this point, it's a trade off. Do you have the time? Do you need to work on those areas? That's something you guys have to take a call on. I would suggest, see, if you're attempting 20 plus questions and you have an area with one issue, one issue with an area, I would suggest leaving that question. Leaving that entire section is also okay, right? If you're attempting 20, 25 questions, it's okay to leave 5 questions from a single topic. But let's say you're attempting only 15 questions, right? Then even better. But say you want to attempt 30 plus, you're looking at that 100 percentile, 99.9 plus percentile range. Then that's when you have no choice but to work on that area even now. But mostly, I think it shouldn't matter. I left out a chapter like subject like geometry, and I still ended up with a good percentile. So if you guys haven't taken CAT before, do understand what you leave is more important than what you attempt. So you should know what you leave. If you know you're weak at something, that's very good. I remember when I went into CAT 18, I went in thinking, you know what, I have no weaknesses. I'm very good at all three subjects. Let me ace it, and I ended up screwing up really badly, right? So make sure you guys have that. What do you want to leave? Have a guideline. Again, let's say you're very weak in PNC, you get a straightforward PNC question, you'll solve it even then, right? If you get a tough one, you leave it. So you know PNC, you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to look at this question with a pinch of salt. Most probably I'm going to leave the question unless it's easy. That's the kind of mentality you have to make. Take mock, guys. This is very important. These two things, especially this year, being 2020, wearing a mask and taking a 2-hour mock is going to be, it's not going to be easy. So take your mocks with a mask in your slot. You want your body to, peak during the exam hours, right? So make sure when it could be your 10 to 12 or it could be your evening slot or whichever slot you guys are in, make sure that you take it one with the PPE kit, mask and gloves, and two in the slot. You can take only 2 mocks, that's fine. But make sure you follow these 2 things. It goes a long way. And if possible, the mocks which you take now should be a previous year CAT paper. 2, it shows you the difference in levels. I think Keshav, you told me, right, that you're not able to score in the CL mocks. So what happens is these mock tests tend to be tougher, right? And it's okay, right? It's meant to be that way. You don't score as much as in mocks as you score in CAT. That's how it is. I think my averages in mocks were around 160, 170. I ended up with a 244 in CAT. So the difference is huge. And it works. You don't have to worry too much about it. Your CAT will definitely be better than what mocks you've taken. All right? Unless you screw up CAT, which is a different matter altogether. Most probably you don't have to worry too much about your mocks. Take a few CAT just to get an idea. See, what happens sometimes is you're so used to a tough paper, you see an easy paper, you're scared to attempt more, right? Let's say you're somebody who attempts 4 sets in DILR, and you suddenly see you finish 4 sets in 30 minutes. How is that possible? What do I do in the next 10 minutes? Should I attempt? I've seen people who stop attempting after 20, 25 questions, saying, you know what, if I attempt more, I'm going to make mistakes. That's not true. That's not necessarily true. You're not pushing your attempts high. You're going in a normal way. You're following your strategy and everything. You probably end up with more attempts or you probably end up with a much higher score than you would have normally in a mock test. So take CAT papers just to get an idea. I'd suggest if you want to take mocks, my preference right now would be for IMS. They're generally the closest to CAT all the time. Time and CL, from what I've heard about CL, is that they're tougher. So again, there's nothing wrong in attempting a tougher paper now, but it makes more sense to go with something which is similar to CAT. So even if you want to try tough papers, I'd say try out the Quant in 2018, DILR in 2017, 2016, and Verbal in 2019. These are brilliant papers. Or DILR 2019 slot 2 is also a brilliant paper. Go through these, even if it's not as mocks, just for practice. It helps you a lot because see, CAT is, again, I'm repeating, CAT is a logic based exam. It is not a formula based or a number based exam, which means your logic is of paramount importance. You don't need to know all the formula. You can still solve a question if you understand the logic behind it. That's very, very important. And that is something a lot of people might not be able to copy. if you've noticed the last few pairs, especially let's say LRDI for that matter, LRDI is no longer LR separate, DI separate. You always have a combination of both. It's logically DI, right? Where you have numbers, you have to work with it, but there is a logic behind your entire calculation scenario. The maxima, minima kind of finding kind of things. All of these are mixed scenarios, which CAT brings out best. So work on your previous CAT papers, especially if you've not attempted them before. Right, guys. Most important, don't burn out. At this point, it makes no sense for you to spend a lot of time on CAT. Again, see, I understand. In my case, what I tried to do in the last 2 weeks was I used to go to office every day. I used to relax with my friends. I used to talk to the non-MBA prep people. So I'm sure all of y'all have a network of people who are going to take up CAT, who are probably looking to get into IIMs. I have a lot. I had a lot of friends over the last 2 years. Most of them studying in IIMs right now. We had groups. We chatted. We discussed strategies. We bounced off ideas. We asked each other questions. All of that is true. But the last 2 weeks, preferably stay away from all of that. Stay away from this. Don't think too much about CAT. Just work on, let's say, work a few hours every week. That's fine. You've done the groundwork. Now it's about acceleration. Your mind games that CAT is going to play with you, it's horrible. Like, you are going to be under pressure. You're going to have a lot of things running in your mind when you go to take CAT. For example, in my case, this is my second attempt, and at this point, when I went to write CAT, I'm being very honest with you guys. I went in thinking I'm not going to make it this year. Right? I told my mother in the day of CAT, you know what? Last year jitna bhi nahi aane wala hai, I'm out. All right. I went in. I had the best 3 hour paper of my life. All right. So don't put in too much expectations. Try not to put yourself under pressure. I know I can say all of this today, but you guys have to try. It will work. Put your mind away. Think of other things. Again, sitting at home, we tend, especially in this current situation where most of us are working from home, etc. It is very hard to not think of CAT and all of that. But try to do that. Enjoy yourselves. Watch movies. Read books. Read again is very, very important. Again, most of the people who do really well in verbal are well-read people. So reading, even now, 2 weeks, take out a novel and read. Right? There's nothing. There's no harm in it. Do that. It helps a lot. And यार अभी give up नहीं मारना. ठीक है? It's, I mean, you guys go out there to maximize your scores. You go out there, try to do anything and everything you can in the exam to maximize. Work on your strategies, work on your weaknesses, but keep a balance, right? It's not about, this is not board exam जहाँ पे 14 घंटे पढ़ के you'll score very high. It's not like that, na? Work on it maybe for a few hours. Take good amount of rest. Again, before CAT, make sure you guys are sleeping 8 hours plus. I would suggest CAT day you sleep 9 hours also good. Get your body cycle. It's very important to wake up a few hours before CAT. Get your body to peak at that point. Eat a light breakfast. All of those kind of things which you guys should be knowing. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, tomorrow at 4, I have a class where I'll be talking about the different strategies. This was more about the importance of analysis, how you can do a lot of. I mean, right now you have a lot of data, right? You've taken a lot of mocks, analyze all of them comprehensively. That's the reason I had this entire class. So if you guys have any questions, I take it up. I know. I mean, I might not have. I might not be able to help you guys completely. I can tell from my experience that I've also had a lot of questions which went unanswered because these are all a lot of this is very personal. If you ask me whether you should leave a subject or not at this point, it depends on how good you are other than this, right? If you are able to solve uh, you know a good number of questions, then there is nothing wrong in leaving. Again, it looks on what you. It also depends on what you're aiming at. If you're aiming at a really high score, an 80, 90 plus score out of 100, then again you'll need to. You can't afford to leave a section. But most often, especially in your weaker sections, it's okay to leave stuff, right? I told you in my own personal experience, verbal, I left out all non-theta the same verbal ability questions. I mean, even in CAT, eventually I think I attempted 2 questions. One I got right, one I got wrong, right? Out of 6 questions. So it's okay. Screw it. You get it, you don't get it, it's okay. But if you can maximize in what you in the other part, you're set. So work on that. If we have any questions, I'll be here for another 10 minutes. So do ask. If not, we'll talk tomorrow strategies. Do join in, especially if you guys are trying to finalize your strategy. I will tell you what kind of strategy I followed. What are the two, three different strategies I had attempted last year, and why I stuck to the final strategy I did. All right. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it from me. You guys have anything? Do let me know. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Rishik. Hi, R. You guys are a little too early for the class. But yeah, I mean, you guys have anything I can help you out with, do let me know. Again, see, I'm not, I can't help you out with the subject as such. You have much better teachers for that. What I can help you out with is with the strategy, or it's with what works at this last moment, right? Those are the kind of things I can help you out with, small tweaks. I can't really help you, overhaul your DILR or verbal or quant at this point. Nobody can, to be honest. Is there anything from the YouTube guys? No? All right. All right, I'm here for another 8 minutes. Do let me know if you guys need anything. Again, tomorrow at 4, same time. And guys, if you guys feel there's some sort of class, some sort of thing that you guys need from me, other than this, do let me know. We can probably schedule a class for that. I'd probably be giving one class towards the end of the week, saying, the kind of what you can do in the last minute, like the kind of last minute tips and things like that before the exam. But other than that, if there's anything specific, to let me know. I think that's pretty much it from here. And guys, if you want, if you're looking, if you guys have the time, uh, looking at videos, for example, I really love this few days Rajesh Balasubramaniam on the CL YouTube channel, where he took a live mock. He's a 4-time 100% so take a look at that. I found it very interesting. See, it shows you how good some people can be. It also shows you the kind of mistakes even people who are that good make. So look at that. It shows you. I mean, especially people when they doubt themselves a lot. This kind of things is really really helpful. When you see a 4-time 100% making silly mathematical mistakes, you see him, acing question after question. See the way he strategizes. These are the kind of things which will really help. So yeah, that's pretty much it. 5 minutes I'm here. If you guys have anything, do let me know. Else I'll close this up. All right, if you guys don't have any other questions, then I think I'm done here. Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up, both the YouTube folks and folks here. Hope to see you guys tomorrow at 4. We'll talk about different section-wise strategies and how you can attempt CAT overall and things like that. So, if you guys have any questions, you can bring it up there. If you guys have anything else you'd like to ask, hey, somebody new has come up. Hey, man. Do you have any? I mean, you're a little too early. I'm just about to end the class. I have another class tomorrow at 4 where I'll be talking about section-wise strategies. So, you guys are interested, you're welcome to show up there. Mr. M. Goyal. All right. All right. I think that's pretty much it from me. If you guys, all right, cool. So, see you guys. Bye. Thanks. He strategizes. These are the kind of things which will really help. So yeah, that's pretty much it. 5 minutes I'm here. Guys have anything to let me know. Else I'll close this up.